The 30th of January, 1933, Germany. Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party, is appointed Chancellor of Germany and aims to lead the German master race to victory in the racial struggle against those deemed as inferior peoples, especially the Jews. The Nazi regime quickly begins to restrict the civil and human rights of the Jewish people and gradually excludes them from professions, businesses, and public spaces. The first concentration camp, Dachau, is established less than 2 months after Hitler became the Chancellor. Between 1933 and 1945, Nazi Germany and its European allies will establish more than 44,000 camps and other incarceration sites including ghettos. The perpetrators will use these locations for forced labor, detention of people deemed to be enemies of the state, and the mass murder of millions. One such perpetrator is a German SS and police leader, Herbert Böttcher. Herbert Kurt Böttcher was born on the 24th of April, 1907 in the small town of Prökuls, then part of the German Empire. He completed his secondary education at the Luisen Gymnasium in Memel, a port city on the Baltic coast known today as Klaipėda in Lithuania. Böttcher continued his education in law at the Albertus University of Königsberg, the University of Munich, and the University of Vienna. In 1925, Böttcher joined the German student corps Lithuania in Königsberg. He passed his first state law examination in 1929 and earned a doctorate in law from the University of Leipzig in 1931. After passing his second state examination in Berlin in 1933, Böttcher returned to Memel and worked as a lawyer and notary. At that time, the Memel Territory, also called Memeland, had been separated from Germany by the Treaty of Versailles and placed under Lithuanian control. Böttcher became politically active in the Socialist People's Community of the Memel Territory, a group pushing for the region's reunification with Germany. In 1934, he was arrested by Lithuanian authorities for anti-state activity and sentenced to 8 years in prison, serving 2 separate terms between 1934 and 1937. Following his release, Böttcher was elected to the regional parliament. In January 1939, he became a member of the Memel Directorate, the local executive body. Just 2 months later, following a German ultimatum, Lithuania ceded the territory to the Third Reich on the 23rd of March 1939, and Memel was once again part of Germany. With Nazi control firmly established, Böttcher joined the Nazi Party in April 1939, and around the same time he became a member of the SS. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. By that time, Herbert Böttcher had already taken command of the 105th SS Standarte Nordost, based in Memel, a position he held from August 1939 to March 1941. In March 1940, he was also appointed acting police director of the Memel region, and in October of the same year, he was transferred to the city of Kassel in central Germany as police president. In May 1942, Böttcher became the SS and police leader in the Radom District, within the Nazi-controlled general government, which was an area of Poland that was controlled by Germany after the invasion in September 1939. By the time Böttcher arrived in Radom, this Polish city had already been under German occupation since the 8th of September 1939. The persecution of Jews began immediately. Robberies, beatings, and public humiliation became part of daily life. Nazi policy aimed to dehumanize and terrorize Radom's Jewish population from the very beginning. On the 25th of October 1939, Hans Frank, the Governor-General of the General Government, made his position clear during a visit to Radom. He declared, "Be tough with the Jews. What joy you can finally get at them. The more that die, the better. Make the Jews feel we are here. We will oppress them everywhere we can." These words set the tone for what followed. Jews were ordered to wear armbands with a Star of David. They were banned from using public transport and sidewalks. Their property was seized, and forced labor became mandatory. Any infraction could result in arrest, beating, or death. On the 3rd of April 1941, Radom's governor Hans Kujat ordered the establishment of 2 ghettos, a large one in the city centre and a smaller one in the Ghetto district. Polish residents were forced to leave the designated zones, and within days, Jews were resettled into these confined areas. The large ghetto centered around Wałęsa Street, a historically Jewish neighborhood. Although no wall was built, windows facing the outside world were bricked up, and a single guarded gate controlled all movement. After relocation from surrounding areas, the population of the large ghetto swelled to nearly 25,000. Overcrowding, hunger, and disease made survival a daily struggle. Jews crammed into small rooms, and basic sanitation was almost non-existent. In an effort to prevent Poles from assisting Jews who tried to escape, Böttcher issued a brutal order to German police stations in the district. He declared that, if weapons or Jews were found in a Polish house, all persons living there, including children, were to be killed and the house was to be burned down. Such actions were to serve as a warning to other Poles who might want to help those fleeing the ghettos. This policy was designed to eliminate compassion and ensure total isolation of the Jewish population. It worked, as many Poles, though sympathetic, were too afraid to help. In January 1942, Reinhard Heydrich, the head of the Reich Security Main Office, formally presented the Nazis' plan for the systematic extermination of approximately 2 million Jews living in German-occupied Poland. Known as Operation Reinhard, the plan aimed at the total extermination of all Jews in the general government. In the Radom District, Operation Reinhard was overseen by SS Obersturmbannführer Wilhelm Josef Blum, while Herbert Böttcher, in his capacity as SS and police leader, was directly responsible for implementing the operation within the city of Radom itself. The liquidation of the ghettos in the area was carried out in 2 main stages, both organized with logistical coordination and carried out under direct SS supervision. On the 4th and 5th of August 1942, the smaller ghetto located in the Ghetto district was emptied of its remaining Jewish population. The residents were assembled and marched to the railway station under armed guard, unaware of their final destination, which was in fact the extermination camp at Treblinka. As the train stood on the siding, it became apparent to the German organizers that too many carriages had been prepared in relation to the number of deportees gathered. In response, Herbert Böttcher issued an order for an additional 2,000 Jews to be taken from the large ghetto in the city center in order to fill the available transport capacity. At dawn on the 5th of August, German forces entered several streets within the larger ghetto and began rounding up residents. Those who held valid work permits were separated from the others and temporarily spared. The remaining men, women and children, regardless of age, were forced into the waiting trains without any indication of their fate. At approximately 9 a.m., the transport departed Radom bound for Treblinka. It is estimated that around 10,000 Jews were deported that single day, and none of them survived. The next major action followed just days later, marking another phase in the systematic destruction of Radom's Jewish community under German occupation. On the evening of the 16th of August, German soldiers completely encircled the large ghetto, sealing off all points of access and isolating it entirely from the outside world. Searchlights were installed along the perimeter to ensure full visibility during the night, and 50 train carriages were positioned at the nearby railway siding, prepared in advance to transport thousands of people to their deaths. The entire operation was once again personally overseen by SS and police leader Herbert Böttcher. As midnight approached and then passed, the floodlights were switched on, casting a harsh and unrelenting glare over the ghetto streets. SS units began storming houses one after the other, entering homes without warning and forcing residents out of their beds and into the streets, with little time to gather belongings. Families were driven through the darkness and brought to the old town square, where selections were conducted under conditions of confusion, fear, and physical coercion. The young and able-bodied were separated from the others, while men, women, the elderly, and children stood waiting without information, uncertain about what was to come. During the chaos of these raids, many people were killed, some within their homes, and others as they attempted to flee or hide. The residents of the local nursing home were executed in what is now Limanovskiego Street, a location formerly known as the Pence Garden, where they were taken and shot as part of the ongoing operation. At the same time, patients in a nearby hospital were also killed by German forces, without exception or hesitation. The operation did not end there, but continued into the night of the 17th to 18th of August. Another round of selections took place at the square, with more families torn apart and more victims dragged to their deaths. In total, around 1,000 people were murdered during the liquidation itself. More than 18,000 others were deported to Treblinka, where they were immediately gassed upon arrival. Only one known person, Nusin Berkovic, managed to escape from the transport and survive the war. Roughly 4,000 Jews were left behind temporarily, not as a reprieve, but because they were still considered useful for labor. They were forced to gather near Szwarlikowska Street, where they remained under German control and awaited further orders. Their first assigned task was to bury the bodies of those who had been killed during the recent liquidation actions, specifically in the Pence Garden, which had become a mass grave. After completing this task, they were ordered to clean and clear the ghetto area by collecting all remaining items deemed valuable by the occupiers. This included furniture, clothing, tools, and various religious artifacts, which were systematically gathered for confiscation or resale. Some families had attempted to conceal their children within homes and buildings, hoping these hiding places might protect them from discovery and deportation. However, when SS units located these hiding spots, including the former kosher slaughterhouse, standard procedure followed. The German forces opened fire on anyone inside, and grenades were subsequently thrown into the building to ensure that no one survived. They were either killed immediately or burned alive during the subsequent fire. The Jewish Council, along with most members of the Jewish police and administrative staff, did not survive the final stages of the ghetto's liquidation. Among those killed was Rabbi Gil Kestenberg, the last rabbi of Radom, who was shot while reportedly attempting to intervene during the mistreatment of a child by a German soldier. One of the few Jewish survivors who witnessed the events from outside the ghetto was Alfred Lipson. He had been assigned to forced labor at a furniture factory located in the village of Zamwini, which placed him outside the ghetto during its destruction. His recollection of the events that took place over those nights remains one of the few first-hand accounts from a Jewish perspective outside the walls. He recalled, "The headlights came on, exposing the doomed ghetto like a big stage. Nobody slept that night in the ghetto, neither did we. I have never seen a pogrom or battlefield, but the sounds that came to us were a mix of both. Shooting machine guns, guns, commands, heart-wrenching cries of children, screams of people in panic, they all combined to give a true picture of the tragedy. Listening for hours we despaired, lost all hope, and just gazed at each other in silence. Near dawn, we were no longer sure if it was just a nightmare. Can this really be happening in the heart of civilized Europe for the whole world to see?" On Wednesday morning, the ghetto was dead silent. All the Jews had disappeared, except for one group of buildings in Szwarlikowska Street. After overseeing the liquidation of the Radom ghetto, Herbert Böttcher continued his role as SS and police leader in the Radom District. In total, between August 1942 and June 1944, he supervised the deportation of over 300,000 Jews to the Treblinka extermination camp. He also played a role in brutal anti-partisan operations. In July 1943, Böttcher was implicated in the Michniów massacre, where 204 villagers were murdered and their homes destroyed as punishment for supporting the Polish resistance. In November 1944, Böttcher was promoted to Generalmajor of Police and SS Brigadeführer, a rank equivalent to Brigadier General in the US Army. However, his command came to an end when the Red Army liberated Radom on the 16th of January 1945. Justice finally caught up with Böttcher when after the war he was arrested by the British Royal Military Police. He was held in internment camps in Neumünster, Gardeland and Neuengamme before being extradited to Poland in 1947. Tried in Radom for his crimes, he was sentenced to death on the 18th of June, 1949. Böttcher was 43 years old when he was hanged on the 12th of June, 1950. There were no tears shed for Herbert Böttcher. Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.